Okay, I'm going to move that we receive those. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, carried. I'd welcome the museum people to the front. And just record your notes for item 9. If you just note that have you asked an item 9 question already, you don't have to do it again. Thank you. Welcome your team here. We're here to talk about your performance last year, the plans for the year ahead, and that pesky asbestos. We've also been running deficits since 2019. That's not sustainable, so we'll have your finance person have a bit of a chat about those. Staff costs are quite high in there, so we hit a next funding agreement. You need a credible plan to address these as well as your building costs. Okay. Deputy Mayor, would you like to move this? I'm prepared to accept, and well, thank you for your presentation in advance. Off you go.
Okay, well, kia ora tātou. Your Worship and Councillors, my name is Rachel Tūwhāngai. I'm the Chair of the Auckland Museum Board. I have with me today board members Ben Palmer, Chair of the Audit and Risk Committee, and the Chief Executive, David Reeves. Deputy Chair Alistair Carruthers also sent his apologies. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you about the museum's recent performance and some of the opportunities and challenges we have been coming up against this year and in the next few years. We always appreciate the opportunity to present on these things, and we appreciate the support of Auckland Council. Thank you. Firstly, I just want to take the opportunity to remind all of those here that about what the museum provides to Aucklanders, and that continued public investment into the museum as a public entity and service is needed. We fulfil many different purposes and work with a wide range of communities. Our work spans tourism, education, research and conservation. We work in a wide range of, with a wide range of sector partners in Auckland, nationally and internationally, and many different communities.
Good morning, councillors and your worship. Turn the microphone on. I'd just like to outline some of the highlights of the last year. This report is the first under the 3-year funding agreement, which we reached with council a year ago. And I understand there is some desire perhaps that we also submit a written report. We could look at doing that next year. The expectation under the agreement was that we provide this presentation to councillors. Highlights of this year have been a number of homegrown exhibitions, including the very highly acclaimed A Different Light, looking at historic photography, which has toured to Wellington and is shortly to go to Dunedin, and also produced a Ockham long-listed book, which we're very proud of. Our Tatonga Community Hub had 3 magnificent exhibitions, including in the middle there, working with Netball New Zealand on the centenary of that great sport in our country. And sadly cut short by the asbestos, our community display working with Ngāti Whātua. We're working with them now on how we will reconfigure that display elsewhere in the building. And our international offer, 3 very good, highly appreciated exhibitions which came from overseas. The Diva currently showing is an extraordinary piece of work. We were fortunate to have the curator from London here with us, and she shared many insights which have produced good responses from our audiences and high levels of satisfaction. We also launched this year our mini membership program. This is an extension to our membership program which puts children at the centre of the membership, and so children who become members can then add on the adult membership, and they get to choose which adult they bring to the museum for their visit. We also launched the country's first museum podcast, which now has monthly episodes, and I commend you to seek those out for stories behind the scenes, which help illuminate more of the museum's work. We also opened a refreshed and long overdue refreshment of our New Zealand Wars Gallery. Atarau is a fresh look at that important part of New Zealand's history. We've now prepared a short video which highlights some of the other things that we've been up to, and then we'll continue with some of our financial. Thank you. I think you can see there that we're focusing not just on numbers, but on deepening the engagement and increasing the variety of activities that we are able to offer a variety of audiences. I'll now pass over to Ben Palmer to talk us through some of the financial aspects.
Thank you, David. Good morning, Your Worship, councillors. My name is Ben Palmer. I'm the chair of the Audit and Risk Committee at the museum. Certainly, this last financial year has been extremely challenging for the museum. And as the Mayor pointed out, we have been running deficits for a number of years, which is a concern to the management and to the Trust Board, which we are trying to work our way through. Just looking at the results, however, for the year, our revenue is on budget. We have there, you'll see, a $7.67 million bequest, which was a one-off windfall to the museum, and fantastic to receive that, but it is one-off. And so if you actually remove that from our numbers, our revenue is pretty much all square in terms of where we were forecasting a year ago. If you look at our expenditure, we are plus or minus pretty much on budget if we adjust for the costs that we've incurred for the asbestos. In fact, it takes us probably a bit ahead of budget in terms of managing our expenditure, which is good, but we still are running a deficit. And that is something that is challenging, and how we address that is an ongoing focus for the Trust Board. We are fortunate that we have been able to fund these deficits through our cash flow. But that, in essence, has come from depreciation. And those of you who understand depreciation will know that it is a non-cash item, therefore we are actually able to use that cash for this. However, there is a price to pay, and that price is around the careful management of our capital expenditure. Because if we're spending money on depreciation, we're not spending it on our assets. And so that is creating challenges for us. The building is a heritage building, it is expensive to maintain, and we need to balance that as well. So all up, we've had these challenges. COVID continues to hit us in terms of tourism. We've now got asbestos in front of us, but we are working on it. And I can assure you that the Trust Board takes the responsibility of careful management and our responsibility to the citizens of Auckland extremely seriously, and making sure that we do manage our way through these crises, and we are looking at what we can do in the future. Thank you very much.
What we have here is our unaudited service performance measures. The fully audited measures will be in our annual report, which will come out later this year. But just to take you through some of the highlights, we have fully achieved 12 of the 16 targets. We have very strong levels of satisfaction. Our visitation is down for the year at around 85% of target, which is due in part through depressed tourism economy, some softness in the local economy, but also the huge impact of needing to close for 24 days during May to deal with the asbestos situation. That had a very direct impact, obviously, on the total visitation. We have continued to perform very strongly in our online space. We're one of the highest performers of any Australasian museum in this area, making sure that our collections and the related information gets out to a wider audience. And an area where we have particular focus is our less than ideal performance in the education area. I've undertaken a detailed review of this in recent months and will be implementing changes this coming financial year. We need to respond to changes in the curriculum, some dynamics that are happening in the school environment where we need to adjust our programs to make us much more appealing for teachers and students to come to the museum. It's a vital part of what we do, and we need to adjust our programs to respond accordingly to that environment. So overall, we are pleased with most of the results, but we know that we've got some work to do in some other areas. Looking ahead, we are currently in year 2 of the 3-year funding agreement with Auckland Council. We have an enormous job ahead of us in the next 12 months around the asbestos remediation, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. We are keeping very tight control on our costs and expenditure. We must do this because the tourism and the economy are not going to come right anytime soon that we can see, and we need to live within our means. One area that we are going to invest in is the software that sits behind the very popular online cenotaph, and vital part of our war memorial function. In fact, it is a national function. It accounts for nearly half of the museum's web traffic. It is on software that is now 12 years old and is part of it becoming unsupported. So we need to invest in that to keep that vital service going. So to the asbestos, I'll briefly bring you up to speed with where things are at. The source of the problem is in the Māori court. So the photograph here you see is of the curved ceiling, and the arrows there are pointing to 100-year-old ventilation systems, and the asbestos is up in, but that's the remnants of a previous job to remove asbestos from the ceiling. However, there's dust containing asbestos left in the ceiling. The space is extraordinarily hard to get to because there's a curved roof on top of a curved ceiling, and it's actually physically too small for a person to get into. The vents are enabling the dust to just be distributed around the building, and we believe that, for instance, we think that when fire alarms go off, the massive smoke extract fans are disturbing the dust, which is causing the problem. We need to get in there and either seal or remove all of that asbestos. It's not straightforward because we've got a gallery full of priceless taonga immediately below, so to construct the necessary scaffolding, we need to decant the gallery. This is having a dent on our tourism offer, so it's not an easy situation for us to solve. At the moment, we have the northern galleries, mainly the northern, the 1929 part of the building remain closed. The southern two-thirds of the building is open and is performing well. Most of those galleries will be open in October, but the Māori Court will be a much longer job to deal with. The engineers have looked at the possibility of doing it from the top, which would involve taking the roof off. Clearly not a very attractive option in Auckland's climate, so we've largely discounted that. Doing it from underneath involves probably in sections dismantling parts of the ceiling to deal with the asbestos and then reconstructing it. We're still working through exactly what the methodology is, how long it will take and how much it will cost. We are pursuing an insurance claim to the extent that our insurance policy will cover asbestos, so we're pursuing that hard, and we are hopeful that there will be some recovery from that source. However, it's not at all certain. The current north foyer, some of you will be familiar with this space. It looks like an industrial landscape at the moment. To meet the asbestos regulations, it has to be air pressurised. We have a contractor in there working under the guidance of a licensed asbestos advisor, and some of our own staff have been trained up. But it is a pretty difficult environment where people are only permitted in with full PPE gear and on a rotational shift basis. We are making very good progress with these galleries, the 6 galleries to the north of the building, and as I said, hope to have these reopened in October. This view here is of the Māori Court. On the right there is a large decontamination tent that was constructed to take out Te Rā, this Māori sail that's on loan from the British Museum. That was the first thing we needed to attend to so that it could be safely packed up, ready for return to the UK. To end on a slightly happier note, the museum is approaching its centenary, and the board and I are looking at how we are going to mark the centenary. It is by coincidence that, so here's the building opening in November 1929. It is 100 years ago tonight that the Auckland Institute sold the former museum in Princes Street and committed the funds to the museum. And then tomorrow is it's the centenary of the laying of the foundation stone of the museum. So some of you may have seen the article in the Herald last weekend, and it's certainly something for us to reflect on, and what it is that we want the museum to be in its 2nd century on Pukekohe. I thank you for your time this morning, and I'm very happy to take questions.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I believe we moved in second. Good day. I'll just check with the chief executive. Have we got anyone from our council building team in to sort of help advise the museum with the asbestos issue and do it in a cost-effective way? I mean, I know you've got independent advisors, but my experience is that same with the seismic, everyone who gets involved in it likes to spend a lot more money than people who don't. So I want an independent advisor. In other words, someone who's independent from making money out of advising asbestos people. We have problems with the seismic industry here as well, doing exactly the same thing, and the fire industry. And so you've been caught with one of the three big money spinners on the name of safety. I know you've got to deal with it, but I just want to make sure that we can provide you with somebody or other.
Yes.
Because if you can trap it and hold it, you don't actually have to remove it. It's just got to trap it somehow or other. I understand it's a difficult time for you in that regard. I've got one or two little questions. I've got two people here as well. In terms of your numbers, we are still your biggest supplier of cash by a long, long way. So managing us is probably more important than managing some of those other things. The admissions is only 3 million. I mean, I keep coming back to, is it time that we put $5 on everybody going there? I just find it unbelievable that you're so hesitant to do what is screamingly obvious to me that you would do. It's not much. And I just want you to at least open your minds towards it. You didn't know asbestos was coming, and you didn't know, I'm going to suggest $5 to go in there is a good thing. Things that are free are oversubscribed and underappreciated. That's just a general rule of the world. Richard Hills has a question, and he has put forward a suggestion to add something to the recommendation, which is that we give you some support to fight your asbestos war, and I'm quite happy to have that incorporated, as is the Deputy Mayor. So Richard, you don't have to actually talk too much about that, but your questions, and I've got everyone's in a questioning mood today.
Kia ora, thank you, Mayor, and thanks, Deputy Mayor, for incorporating those. I did take advice to add non-financial support because I didn't want to circumvent the levy discussions, which are actually important to stay separate and independent. But I just put that up there because of the monumental scale and the problem that I didn't realise until I was there, how disruptive this is. Also put C because unlike Te Papa, which is almost completely funded by the government, you guys barely received anything from the government and set aside what happens in the museum. The building itself is of massive national significance, and I believe the government should be helping here. My question that includes all of this, what are the sort of revenue losses predicted because of the significant amount of space? Like, obviously it's going to drop visitors because there's less things to see, but also that major event space is now unavailable, which is a significant revenue gainer. Is that the right word? So if you just want to give if you want to give us an idea of what the expected losses because of so much of the museum being forced to close.
So the losses to the end of June were in the region of $500,000. That was just for the 24 days during May. We are also seeing a degree of hesitation from the public to return, or in fact, knowledge that the museum is reopened is not widespread. We're in this awkward situation where closing the museum made national news, reopening the museum did not. And so we're having to put a lot of effort into promoting the fact that the museum is indeed open and functioning, not quite as normal, but certainly we're there. We have built into this year's revised budget, so this is revised from the annual plan that we presented 3 months ago, a $2 million drop in tourism income because of the loss of the Māori court availability. And we're seeing that at the moment we are offering international tourists half price because the value is simply not there. And when we briefly had it at full price, the pushback was so enormous that we took the prudent decision to offer it half price. Even that, we're seeing tourists walk away, which is incredibly sad. We will be working on alternative content to bring back the tourist attractions, but it's a serious dent in our revenue.
Thank you. And next question, just on the Diva. I mean, that show is just phenomenal. And if people haven't seen it, they need to. And it's in a very safe area. But if you want to give us an idea of the gravity of such a exhibition coming to Auckland and I think the first outside of the Northern Hemisphere, am I correct? But also what sort of numbers you're seeing, that's a paid entry, so that helps your revenue?
That's right. So we've got a target of around 65,000 visitors, paying $25 a head for that. It is performing well, and we're getting extremely good word of mouth. So people who are going through are thoroughly enjoying that show. And I would really commend all councillors to come and tell your friends, of course. It is a remarkably good exhibition. It's much more than people expect. And it is by one of the world's leading curators in this field.
Thank you for that, Councillor Henderson.
Yeah, thank you. I have to admit, I winced when I heard there was a Māori piece on loan from the British Museum here on loan. Can you inform us to the origin of this piece?
So the origin is uncertain. Even the British Museum don't know for certain, except that it has been in their collections for over 200 years. There's been a lot of research done over a number of years. It is the only extant Māori woven sail in the world. And through work with Christchurch Art Gallery and ourselves, we were able to bring it to Aotearoa for 3 years. That loan period expires in May next year, and it's likely that it will then be returning to London.
Okay. Leaving aside maybe the question on whether we have to give it back, I was wondering if you could comment on repatriation of Māori artefacts back to Aotearoa and maybe in more general terms.
So the responsibility for return of taonga from overseas back to New Zealand is largely the responsibility of Te Papa. And so we don't have an overt role in that, except sometimes in brokering relationships and conversations. In terms of taonga held by Auckland Museum and cared for, we have an active program of responding to repatriation requests and being more transparent about those processes as time goes on. And it's something we've noted in this year's annual plan, actually, that we will be doing more proactive work. That doesn't mean just opening the doors and expecting things to fly out the door. Far from it. What it means is more active conversations and the various ways in which Māori can reconnect with their taonga.
Thank you, I really appreciate that. That's prompted a follow-up. How would one go about a repatriation request? What's the process?
Process is simply to either contact us by email through the website or by phone, and we refer to the relevant curator who begins that conversation. It often takes quite a long time because there are many parties who have potential interest, but we've got a pretty good track record of having good conversations.
It's really not for me to say not being mana whenua, but I wonder if we could save some plane fare just quietly. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Councillor Dalton, please.
Thank you very much, and thank you for all you do for Aucklanders and looking after our taonga and also all the exhibitions, everything. I had a few questions. One was around the board's determination that it is COVID that is still impacting your numbers. How do you reach that determination?
It's really just seeing the ongoing depressed tourism that has still affecting. So the national figures were predicted to be around 96% of pre-COVID, which is what we did our budgets on. In fact, it's sitting at around 90%. So there's a slight impact. It's not the major impact, but it is still having some impact.
Was that international or both? International and domestic?
International.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. The online cenotaph is amazing, so I'm glad that you're going to continue to invest in that. That's more of a comment than a question. My question was around depreciation is something you can only use as a very temporary measure. We've done this ourselves as a council. It hasn't worked out well for us at all, not investing in depreciation. I wondered, I was going to go to the education where the numbers are down. Does that generate an income or is it a cost?
We do get some revenue from schools, but it doesn't pay for the entire cost at all. So it is a net cost to the museum. It's a vital thing. It's in our Act as an activity that we are required to do. So it is a small revenue generator, but it's a net cost.
Do you see that you'll be able to make that shift to now respond to a changing curriculum without having any impact on what MOTAT delivers in its education space? That, you know, as a governance level, they too are trying to get some income back in.
Yes. So one of the things that's happened this year is that I've been meeting with the chief executives of the other museums and other attractions funded by council. And one of the areas we've been working on is a more joined up education offer, where we're much clearer about what each of us offer and that we're not duplicating. And our desire this coming year is to provide a more comprehensive program, and it's sort of like perhaps a one-stop shop for teachers and schools to look at, so where they're much more aware of what the whole program is across all of our organisations, so the Zoo, Stardome, Maritime Museum, Art Gallery, MOTAT and ourselves. So I understand your question. It's something that we're constantly working on. The fact is that there's a lot more, there's plenty more capacity for all of us to do more.
It's an excellent answer, thank you. I love those partnerships and discussions. My last question is around the centenary and the board planning towards that, and you'll be, I'm assuming you're doing this already, but it's an enormous opportunity for fundraising to really get bequests, and even some that vital money from central government would be nice as well. So that'll be part of your package of what will be delivered.
That's correct. The management team of the museum is working on a range of options which are bringing to the board at the end of this calendar year. It'll be looking at what the opportunity is for renewing the Māori and Pacific galleries, interrupted of course by the very unwelcome situation with the asbestos, but nevertheless those galleries are approaching 30 years old themselves and need the narratives and displays need renewal. There's some vital building infrastructure work that needs doing. The air conditioning systems are approaching 35 years old, and some of the components of that system are obsolete. You only get one chance every generation to do a thorough job of replacement, so we're probably going to incorporate that. There are some heritage restoration opportunities as well while we're at it. So we're pulling together the options for the board to consider. We've also commissioned a fundraising feasibility study just to get an idea of the philanthropic landscape. Certainly opportunities for government and other funding are part of that mix. We're just assembling that information now, and it'll form part of the whole package that the board have available to them to consider in December.
That's a really valuable piece of work, isn't it? Thank you all for all you do. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Councillor Foley, please.
Kia ora, thank you so much for all of the amazing work that you do and for safeguarding our taonga, or our mea sina, as we say in Samoan, for our Māori and Pacific communities especially. Just a question around charging at the door. So at the moment it's free for residents, free for Aucklanders, but non-residents, tourists are expected to pay, and then you've got shows where everyone is charged a fee, correct? Okay, so I'm really mindful of charging at the door and the effect that might have in terms of a barrier to Aucklanders who are already paying for it through the levy, and to communities like mine in Manukau and in South Auckland. Are you able to comment on that in terms of that equity issue? And then I have another question.
Sure, it's something that we have looked at, and at the Mayor's suggestion. What we've done with benchmarking, like institutions across Australasia, but also our own knowledge of our audiences, is that it would seem that a door charge, no matter how modest, would have a fairly significant reduction in casual visits by Aucklanders to the museum. That then puts some pressure on the viability of things like the cafe, the car park and other things. So in fact, our net revenue is better if we are free at the door for Aucklanders and then have a range of add-on services that people pay for. The business model we've looked at, and we've looked at this several times, means that at the moment the settings are such that we are better to have free entry for Aucklanders, paid entry for overseas tourists. We invite New Zealanders, and that's a relatively small, so non-Auckland New Zealanders, to make a donation. And we've had good success with the tap and go type donation machines. So we do believe that we've got the mix about right, and it does also deal with the equity issue that you refer to.
Kia ora, thank you, and I appreciate that. My second question is, I have heard that the museum is currently developing its Pacific strategy and that this is the first time ever that the museum has undertaken that. I mean, I know it's not in your presentation, but I wonder if you could give us an update on that. Kia ora.
Certainly, we've worked with our Pacific Advisory Group and developed a Pacific Development and Delivery Plan. Matawhatawa Oha is its name. It was launched during this financial year, and it sets out a number of very specific targets around engagement with Pacifica communities in Auckland, but also reaching out into the Pacific, because of course we hold very important collections from across the region.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for your governance and management of what many Aucklanders think is one of our finest cultural institutions. Well done, and you've certainly had a bit of a tough time. I've got a couple of questions and then a brief comment that I'll try and turn into a question. First of all, how long do you think it will be before you get back to normal operations?
The Northern Galleries we hope to have open in October. The remaining area, which was the Māori Court, which spans right from east to west, right across the building, that will at least be a year before we can get the asbestos dealt to in there. And by then, we may well be looking at what we want to do for the planning for complete rejuvenation of those galleries in time for the centenary. There's a lot of unknowns right at the moment, so I'm really unable to put a date on that. What we are looking at is some interim measures to have additional Pacific and Māori content available, and to bring back some of the attraction of the museum. I don't think we'll ever be back to normal before we get into the redevelopment for the centenary.
So my second question is, when did you think the Māori Court would be open and operational? And really, you can't give me an answer on that yet.
We don't.
Okay.
We simply don't know, because the engineers are still giving us advice on exactly the methodology for dealing with the asbestos.
Okay, my third question is, you know, in the political working party that your team and we've all been part of, and Councillor Dalton kind of mentioned it in the educational space, but it was that sharing of exhibitions and things, so other people can promote you, you know, and you can promote others, and the region as a whole, you're part of that family. Do we need to do anything more formal around that, or do you think that you're doing an okay job with that, or have you got any comments around that? What are you thinking at the moment? Or have you been really asbestos focused and it hasn't been up as a priority?
Yes, we got off to a good start with goodwill amongst the six of us, and we are continuing to meet regularly. For me, the asbestos has been a massive distraction, but I've nonetheless still kept hosting those meetings, and we are very committed to things that we can do without cost, to promote really what the whole of the cultural offer is for Auckland, and we're working with Tātaki Auckland Unlimited with that as well. I'm at the moment, I wouldn't say that we need anything further in that, but perhaps just occasional questioning and encouragement to keep going.
Okay, thank you. And then finally, look, I know that there have been some questions that councillors have given me about why there wasn't an actual report, just a presentation. And you answered that to me and said, well, you weren't asked to do one. The advantage of doing one in the future is that everyone knows the good news stories to share, and that it got the facts and figures to reference. So I think, you know, it actually is worth the effort. And finally, all the best for tomorrow. Foundation Stone, I noticed, was opened by the then Prime Minister, so the government would have felt some ownership, you would think. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Darby, please.
Kia ora koutou, and yeah, likewise, thanks for the enormous work there. Probably just on the financials initially, on the, you're a bequestee for a significant sum. That's an anonymous bequest from the bequestor, is it?
No, it was a brother and sister who passed away 10 years ago, and the terms of their will was that the bequest was held for 10 years while some other activities happened, and then the residue came to the museum. And we were unaware of it until about a year ago when we were contacted by the lawyers. It was a very good day at work. It is, however, for the future development of the museum. It would be a shame to use it for asbestos remediation. I'm sure that's not what was in the minds of the bequesters, or paying the power bill. So it has been transferred into a separate endowment fund, and we hope to use that for positive development of the museum rather than run-of-the-mill. And we think that that sends a really good signal to others who may be considering a will, that we have a separate endowment fund, that we're able to separate funds like this and use them for, as I say, development work rather than run-of-the-mill operations.
Okay, and forgive me if I am not across the detail if it's been communicated before, but it is a significant contribution to Auckland. Has there, Deputy Mayor, just a question, you probably know this, has there been a formal acknowledgement either from the Mayor or yourself to the bequestor? I'm just wondering if we could follow up on that, because that is a significant contribution to Auckland, and I'm just wondering, Deputy Mayor, we could chase that one up. Look, I just want to say it's one thing to receive an amount like that, but it says something about you all. You know, you have got to be worthy to, in the eyes of a bequestor, to receive such a bequest. So it's an acknowledgement of the museum as a whole. I did that. Just in terms of the interest, you're ahead on that by quite a considerable number. Well ahead on budget. It's not a lotto win. It's are you playing the NASDAQ or what's happening there?
Our funds are managed by Milford, and these are market movements. There's nothing magical, nothing special. The 7.67 million was deposited very quickly into Milford for ongoing investment. We have a SIPO, a Statement of Investment and Policy Objectives, which sets out how we wish to invest these funds. And we are going down that path, holding it very firm. We don't react to market forces. We just sit on our hands and let the market sort itself out, which seems to be the best advice that anyone can give us. And yeah, so it's fortuitous, but we'll take it.
We are looking for a global investment manager, by the way, so for the future fund. And just in terms of the asbestos, there's varying degrees of asbestos. I don't want to get too much into the detail here, but you've had a risk assessment, and you know the particulate size, because I've had a little bit of experience, but I don't want to bring that here. Asbestos can be safe as long as it's not moving. But yours is of a particulate size, and it gets on the move with the ventilation. And so in that risk assessment, it is highlighted that this is an actual risk, if you like. I just want to get a sense of, you know, the degree of the risk that was identified through that survey?
Sure. The first thing I want to say is by way of reassurance that we've had nearly 2,000 air tests since the beginning of this issue, and not one of them has showed a result above the WorkSafe limit for safe occupation. So we are confident as we can be, that for our staff, our volunteers, our visitors, that we have, in the areas of the building that are open, we have not presented an undue risk. The remnants of the asbestos that are there is most asbestos fibres in the dust. It's the leftovers of a removal job from the late 1980s or early 90s, and it is loose, it's not contained, which is why we have to deal with it. Whether that's by sealing it and containing it and kicking it down the road for somebody else to discover in another generation, or by getting in there and removing it now. That's what we're working through, what the costs and benefits, and sometimes just straight logistics of what's possible, as I described earlier. It's an extraordinarily difficult space because of the architectural shape of where it is, and the value and fragility of the things around about. But the risk must be dealt with, and it's, we can't know about it and then just look the other way.
We'd ask that. Councillor Watson, please.
Just a quick one, picking up on your commentary about, you know, the relative decline in schools coming to the museum. I can recall back certainly a number of years ago where the museum had an incredibly successful Anzac Day, Anzac exhibition where busloads of students would take around, and sometimes quite often the whole year levels. Since that time, schools have become, in many instances, a bit more reluctant to go outside their gates. There's a lot of health and safety regimes and whatnot that make it quite a logistical exercise. Do you have any insight? Am I right in saying that's a factor? And secondly, is there any other things that are kind of making it more difficult for that really, you know, valuable and very well patronised exhibitions used to have?
Certainly what we're seeing is that it is a whole range of factors. It's no single thing that we can change or that needs to be fixed. Some of the things are outside of our control in the school environment where there's different pressures, financial and otherwise, and what we need to do though is respond to that and to try and retailor our programs to what's going to work for teachers. We have also been doing some work around teacher training. So we have evenings, sort of in-service training for teachers to help them with planning their visits and to think through what is going to make it easier for them. There are a whole range of things that have been highlighted by the review that I mentioned, and we'll be implementing those as quickly as we can between now and December, with a view to really a substantial increase from the beginning of the school year in 2026.
Thank you for that. Councillor Walker, please, you out there?
Certainly, I'm here. My apologies, Mr. Mayor, I'm not well. I did indicate that to officers, so I just wanted to put that on the record. And the observation, in addition to that, that I've not been responsible for the collapse of any quorums recently because I haven't been on the particular committees that had that, though I did actually attend one, but it failed. And I couldn't have made up the difference. So I've got a couple of questions, but first, commendations, David. You're responsible for a remarkable institution, and long may it succeed. So I have a question that goes to whether the Auckland War Memorial Museum could receive some funding through the Auckland deal, noting, as I've mentioned in the past, that the Auckland War Memorial Museum has more taonga, more treasures than Te Papa. I think considerably more visitation, both local and international. I have raised this issue, and I wonder whether the council, particularly under the leadership of the mayor, has actually put together the documentation for that. Has that happened? And if so, if not, why not? And that might be something that the Mayor also might want to address. Thank you.
Phil Wilson here, Councillor Walker. The short answer is no, there was not a specific reference to museum funding provided for in the council's proposal. And I just make the observation, no stronger point than that, that the scope of the regional deal, our proposition, was signed off by the governing body, so it was not identified as a priority within that. It seeks to address other issues, not to minimise the importance of the museum.
Yeah, that said, Mr. Chief Executive and Councillor, there have been discussions with Minister Goldsmith about the role of the museum and the government relationship there. So it's not as if nothing has happened. That would be untrue. Thank you.
So back to my question as to whether or not a case has been put together. Have we done that? Because we have a great case, but I don't know that the government has ever received it. Have we put a case together?
We have had discussions with government about funding our cultural institutions, yes, and there are some ongoing discussions.
Okay, well, I would suggest that we do put a case together because it would be well received by Aucklanders and we should make it public. Otherwise, we just, kick the can down the road, which appears to be the case. I would also make the observation, just following on from David's comment, that the museum was funded by Aucklanders. It was funded by public subscription. There's an immense amount of goodwill, particularly against a background where this council was seen to be abidingly behind the museum, which I think is critical. So thank you again, David. You're welcome to make a comment around that.
Thank you for that, Councillor Walker. And it's sort of part of the RAFA debate, which we are talking to the government about. So your points are well made. Thank you. Councillor Bartley, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for your presentation. My observation of the museum is that it's very here and now and also in the past. Like I've been to exhibitions there, taken my niece and my nephews there. Black Grace, I went to something Black Grace held there. And then the Pasifika, I want to acknowledge all your work with honouring our Pasifika heritage and place here in Tamaki Makaurau, Aotearoa. And the online cenotaph, I've just been a little bit distracted because I went on there and I found my mother's grandfather, and he was on the ship that went to Apia in 1918, and that's how this Balangi soldier met my great-grandmother and started my mother's line. So I'm a little bit distracted because I'm on your online cenotaph, finding that history out. But my question really is, is that a deliberate strategy to not be static? That's my thinking. That's what I look at when I look at the museum. It's not static. There's always something new, but also the past. Is that deliberate?
It's absolutely, and it is one of the challenges of running a museum like ours, in that part of our audience enjoy coming because things haven't changed. There are things familiar, things they enjoy from past visits, and yet there are some portions of audience who don't visit because it hasn't changed. So we constantly not a tightrope, but just balancing those two things of having things that are reassuring and familiar and of the past, but also things that are provocative and challenging and talking about today's society, but also the questions we need to be thinking about for the future. And these are some of the things that are in our Path to 2029 strategic document, thinking about what kind of museum Auckland wants for the 2030s and beyond. Who do we want to be in 2029 when our building turns 100? And there are numerous proverbs about walking into the future with our eyes on the past. We learn from who we've been, we learn from the city that we've become, and have aspirations for who we want to become. And Auckland Museum wants to absolutely be providing space for those discussions, and those discussions in a respectful and informed way, not in a combative or polarised way.
Oh, malo lava. Well done. Thank you.
Very good answer. Thank you very much for that. Even in this room, there are those who want to change and those who want to stay as we were. So you're right. It is the public. I noticed your visitation. You've got nearly 1 million people coming through there. $5 a head's 5 million. I'm absolutely sure you got right there, because you're at 99%. People love you. You know, you might only drop to about 95, and there's $5 million, and a lot of ratepayers would love you even more as well. So I'll just throw that in there. At this stage, I'll take the vote. It's been proposed and seconded. All those in favour, please say aye. To the contrary, thank you very much for your presentation.
Sorry, Worship, I thought we were going to have comments. That was just questions.
Well, terribly like comments to me.
I'm happy to make another comment if that's available.
Is there still a difference?
Yes, there is.
Okay, well, this had better be a question, because your last one
Not a
sounded like a
question.
comment.
Comment.
It's a comment now. Okay, right.
Yes,
Sorry. Yeah,
all right.
right. Well, you can step back, you people, because it's a mere comment, and you are not allowed to be responding to these. So there you go. We have these strange little behaviours here, but
Kia ora, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Look, I just wanted to say that I really acknowledge and commend the museum staff and board for the work that they're doing. It's not lost on me that they are the holders and keepers of the largest Māori and Pacific collection in the world. You know, those are our taonga, our mea sina, our treasures. And so I'm really, really thankful as well that they are engaging and developing their very first ever Pacific strategy, Mā Tawhatafa Aho, and look forward to what comes out of that. Next week, on the 8th of August, I'm going along on a tour that's been funded by the wards in my ward, the local board, in my ward, with seniors who are for the first time going to the museum on a special guided tour. Many of them have lived their entire lives in this country and have served this country in many different ways. And for a lot of them, this will be their first time to engage in that kind of a tour and see those artifacts for themselves and be able to be told the stories and the histories behind them. So that's very special, and I'm really thankful to the local board for that opportunity. And I wanted to pick up on the reasons why they didn't or haven't gone to the museum in the past 50 years. And it is because that for many families in my ward, in the Manukau ward, there are costs that are prohibitive, like petrol, like parking, like food and everything else. So not having that cost at the door is a really, really good thing for the communities, the families, not just in my ward, I'm sure in West Auckland and in other parts of the city as well, and especially when we're going through a cost of living crisis. So I'm also very thankful that the museum has looked at, you know, what it would do to have a charge at the door, and as they told us today, they've looked at that several times, and they've concluded after looking at that and investigating that, that it's actually a better business model for them not to charge Aucklanders at the door, because when they come in, they'll spend money at the cafe and in other ways. And that's a better way for them to generate revenue than charging at the door. So I'm really thankful to the museum. I will be praying for them that these issues with the asbestos will be cleared up soon and affordably, and look forward to seeing them all next week as well. Kia ora. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay, I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary, carried. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It's now 12:30. I'm going to take a risk of going back and seeing if we can get through item 9 before you have lunch.
Can I make a suggestion, Your Worship?
Yes.
We've got the union guys sitting outside, and you know, Andy Baker, the champion of the unions. But I wonder whether it would be better to hear that item first, in the assumption that it might not be as long and winded and intricate as our quarterly report.
If the room's happy with that, I just wanted something that was relatively short to fill in before lunch, but we could even invite the union to join us over a bowl of soup we have today. And so, as champion of the